This is a personal affront to me. No! And my ancestors. Hi, I'm Dr. Eleanor Janega, and I am a medieval historian. Today, I've come here to be tortured because apparently my coworkers think it's really funny to make me look at AI pictures of medieval scenes and explain what is wrong here. I've got a series of pictures here. I'm gonna go through them all. I'm gonna give them a rating from 1 to 10. 10 is, wow, I can't believe it's not actual medieval art. And 1 is, why have you done this to me? What have I done to deserve it? I'm trepidatious. Okay, we're going in. Deep breath. This is a This is a church. This is a church on an island. This is Lindisfarne?
It's supposed to be Lindisfarne during the high medieval era.
Oh my God. Okay, Lindisfarne, for those who don't know, that makes all of this make sense. Because Lindisfarne is a monastery that is on an island. Well, it's not really an island. When the tide is out, there's like one isthmus that you can get in and out of. It's, you know, a whole monks trying to be secluded from the world thing. It was very famously sacked by Vikings who raided it, but not during the high medieval period.
Nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, Pater Noster qui es in celis.
So the high medieval period, this is a general way of talking about kind of the middle of the medieval period. It's a big time of intellectual development and general development throughout Europe, none of which is on display in this picture because these are ruins. Monasteries are incredibly important places in Europe because they're major centers of learning. Does it look like there's any monks or home here? No. A weird amalgamation of what is there today. Like a nondescript medieval building, it might be kind of Romanesque, but like you wouldn't expect to see this sort of triangle architecture here. There are some kind of Gothic points, but you will note like this entire fallen down wall. Okay, why would that be there? One of the big problems with this picture is that medieval people have this sense of style and taste that is incredibly gaudy, right? And if you see stone walls like this, that's because that's how things appear today. But in the medieval period, churches and monasteries would usually have plasters on the wall and be really highly painted. Another reason why maybe the AI thinks this is what Lindisfarne should look like is that, to be honest, most of our medieval monasteries here in the United Kingdom do look like this now. They're all ruins, and that's because Henry VIII was a jerk. He wanted to get a divorce and start his own religion all about how it was totally okay for him to shag a bunch of different chicks. He also stole the land of all of the monasteries and he gave it away to friends. So no one really wanted to keep monasteries up. They take a lot of work. This makes for super atmospheric ruins in the backyards of very grand houses owned by rich people. But sadly, we've lost this really big medieval legacy here in the United Kingdom. I could tell it was Lindisfarne because it's on an island. So it's gonna get some points for that. I'm giving it, I think, a 3 because I'm pretty mad. Yeah, that's enough. Is it the worst thing I've ever seen? No. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not. Get out of town. So what is up next? This appears to be a nun floating 3 feet off the ground in front of a fire. What are we doing here? What is...
It's a very famous woman who...
Yeah, the flying nun. I'm guessing that this is maybe someone who's burnt at the stake.
Exactly, and I think she was a teenager.
This is supposed to be Joan of Arc.
Ding, ding,
No,
ding.
get! First of all, I guess we got to talk about who Joan of Arc is. I mean, do I really need to explain who Joan of Arc is? Joan of Arc is a peasant girl. She was born in France, and she had visions from God starting at a very early age that said, "The English suck. France rules #1." Somehow she managed to get taken very, very seriously. And she is more or less kind of like a battlefield mascot.
I have a message for your King Henry. It is a message from God.
And this kind of morale boost really does help the French at the time. So she goes into battle. She does get actually wounded a number of times. She's kind of incredibly strident and annoying. For a while, she's given a position where she's able to give military commands, some of which are really quite pithy.
Why did you command us to approach by this side of the river? We should have ridden up boldly where the English are strongest.
War, it's a medieval war, you know, and I don't know if you know anything about the 100 Years' War, but it lasts for a very long time.
I'm commanded to warn this Englishman to give up the fort and to save his life and the lives of his men. Take me to him.
There's a lot of like ongoing battles, and she really wants to push and wipe out the English completely. And the King of France is like, girl, I have no monies. And eventually she falls out of favor. She's captured by the English, who then essentially accuse her of being a heretic, and she's burnt at the stake. She has since received canonization and become a saint. Good for her. Very famously, it took place in the middle of the old marketplace in Rouen, not in a forest next to a random tower, which is in a forest for some reason. If you were AI, again, the thing that I would expect you to mess up here is I would expect you to show me like the marketplace now. I'm guessing the weird fire has something to do with AI, how it doesn't want you to do violent scenes. When you were burnt at the stake, you usually actually die of smoke inhalation. And the reason that you kill heretics like this is because it prevents there from being any relics.
May I see a crucifix level with my eyes?
Be quiet.
May I see a crucifix level with my eyes?
Medieval people love relics, you know, which are like the body parts of saints. They're really, really concerned that people are going to want to take relics from Joan. So you burn her up and you throw her ashes down in the Seine, and then bang, no one can worship her. So that's the specific reason why heretics die this way. I don't know what's going on with the silent, shrouded people who look like they're in The Handmaid's Tale. I think these are maybe meant to be torches, but they're not on fire. Everyone who's there is wearing exactly the same outfit. Like, you would expect to see all kinds of people crowding around in order to see a scene like this. You know, hot fuzz when everyone in the village is sitting around in shadowy, clandestine meetings chatting about the greater good. Which, to be fair, is essentially what happened to Joan of Arc. She's definitely not going to be wearing this particular outfit because this looks too much like a nun's habit. And the entire point of Joan of Arc at this point in time is that she's being presented as a heretic. So we do know that they made her wear a dress, which she really hated doing. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, dress her like a nun, because when the entire point is that someone is a bad person and is the wrong kind of religious, you're not going to make them look more religious as a result of that. Some people misunderstand this and they go, oh, the church killed Joan of Arc. No, they bloody well didn't. The church were like, you did what to who? Girl, I don't even know what to do with this. It's a disembodied, like it's a nun floating in the air. And it looks like an old woman, not a 16-year-old.
Question is it a one or is it a nun?
It's a nun. Can I go now? Are we done?
Has it made you excited for the next one?
No, it has not made me excited for the next ones. It's made me very, very anxious. But, oh, okay, all right. Deep breath, fresh horrors, let's go. Okay, this is a city. There is a church. There is a square.
It's a really famous city on the continent, specifically in Bohemia.
Are you? No! It's supposed to be Prague. Don't do this to me. Oh, jeez. I'm mad. And the reason that I'm mad is I'm a Prague specialist, and they've done this on purpose. They've done this to torture me. Prague in the 14th century is arguably one of the most important cities in Europe. And that's why I am a Prague specialist, because it's the best. There's a lot of reasons why this doesn't make sense as Prague in the 14th century. And one in particular is that this architecture doesn't look Gothic at all. And Prague's architecture in the 14th century is undergoing a transformation, very specifically taking French Renaissance architecture and making its own thing. If it's supposed to be possibly Tin Cathedral or the cathedral, St. Vitus Cathedral up on the hill, I'm guessing that they think this is tin and that it's trying to be Old Town Square, based on the fact that there are other like houses and stuff up against it. That is my town, those are my people, I am a Czech speaker, and none of this looks like anything in Prague at the time. I'm not surprised to see plastering on the various churches. I like that they have made the roofs kind of tiled and red. There are no people around. In the 14th century, Prague is particularly important, but that isn't to say that Prague wasn't always important. It's always been one of the richest cities in one of the richest kingdoms in Europe. And that's because Bohemia has really amazing silver mines. So they're able to just take silver out of the ground and mint their own coinage. It means that the dukes who are then made kings of Bohemia are extremely influential, and they're very important in the Holy Roman Empire. The kings of Bohemia are one of the 7 imperial electors, so the people who get to vote on who will be the emperor. And in the 14th century, that emperor is Charles IV. If you've ever been to Prague, everything is called Charles. You got Charles Bridge, you got Charles University, and he is very specifically trying to make Prague the capital of the Holy Roman Empire writ large. He's reimagining it as this really cutting-edge, high Gothic, super religious city that is full of amazing, beautiful new buildings. He makes it one of the largest cities in Europe and the largest north of the Alps in terms of area. So it is like a boom town in the 14th century. I don't know how to say that this is Prague just like as a person who's seen a picture of Prague one time, let alone as someone who used to live there. This is a personal affront to me and my ancestors. It is a 1. Yaden. And also it said that my Nana's cooking wasn't good. So it's a 1 for me. What am I meant to do?
But think positively. Everything after this is gonna look
It can't
great.
be worse. It can't be worse. And we're going in. It's a woman and she's rich. Okay, I'm going to assume that this is a royal woman. English, French.
Yes.
It's Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Exactly.
We're already doing better than the Prague scene. I can tell she's a rich woman because she's wearing furs, she's wearing silks. One of the things that AI does is it tries to make people hot all the time, and they're not wrong about Eleanor of Aquitaine being very hot. Everybody talks about this at the time. We don't exactly know what she looks like because all we really have is her tomb effigy, and those are highly stylized, so it's not really an exact portrait of her. All of her biographies are like, yeah, she was a babe though. But the thing is, what medieval people think is hot and what we think is hot are two very, very different things. Another thing that is just not gonna be good enough is this hair. Eleanor of Aquitaine might have her hair done up in like a cool bun or something like that, but you usually have like headdresses and veils and things that tuck all your hair into it. Undone hair, like it's just like 100% not the vibe, and it would be considered completely unacceptable. The thing about beauty standards is they are not universal and they are not timeless. So what is really hot in the medieval period is not what we think is hot now. Starting with my girl's hairline right here, because it doesn't start halfway up her head. And what medieval people think is super hot is to have a forehead like an egg and like a receding hairline, to the point that women would pluck their hairlines back to give themselves like a super bulbous kind of thing going on. So Eleanor of Aquitaine is one of the most important women ever in history. She herself, in her own right, was the Duchess of Aquitaine, which is where she gets her name, which is basically almost all of southwestern France. She's also one of the only women ever to have been both the Queen of France and the Queen of England. First, she marries King Louis of France. It doesn't go very well. They get divorced after going on crusade together because, you know, who hasn't had a really bad holiday? Right after that, she remarries King Henry of England and becomes the Queen of England as well. She's an incredibly powerful woman, an incredibly intelligent woman, and she often rules in her own right. So, for example, after her husband Henry eventually dies, her son Richard the Lionheart becomes the King of England, and then he immediately leaves to go on crusade.
Sire. Your bath, sire.
For the love of Christ, Roxton, will you stop them doing that?
They love you, sire.
My head is going like the bells of hell. Is that it?
One more castle to sack. Then we're home to England.
Eleanor of Aquitaine is one of the people that he leaves in charge of the kingdom while he is gone. So she is a real phenomenal woman, a towering intellect, and a force to be reckoned with. And that's why I'm named after her. I wish I was as rich. My rating for this is a 5. I'm not mad at it. It's legible as a rich woman in the medieval period. Granted, it's just kind of like an amalgamated slush of what it thinks medieval dress is like, which is kind of nonsense. It's got some cheap dime store eyeshadow involved, but like, how can I be mad about anything ever again when I've already seen the depths of hell? This is all your fault. All right, we're being brave, we're moving forward. Oh, I know what this one is.
Do you?
I can tell what this is. This is supposed to be the signing of Magna Carta, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, we got some rich guys. He's signing in the middle of the document, which is, he's the enfant terrible of the signing documents world. He's just like right in the... I'm guessing this is King John I.
Exactly.
I would have to guess that though, because multiple people are wearing crowns. Who's the king? It's also very funny though, because it's like this important scene where we are signing a theoretical foundational document. And I don't know if you've ever worn mail, but you don't like wear it to go see a document getting signed. It's really, really heavy. It's armor and it's for fighting. It's not something that you like wear as a fashion choice, unless, of course, you're Crystal Connors in the movie Showgirls. I digress, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't know why everyone's so mad, and more than half of them are bald. Fun fact though, medieval people thought that being bald was sexy. The idea was that in humoral theory, you were so hot you burnt your hair off, am I right? John kind of famously was often clean shaven, so I don't think he'd be too happy about that. King John I is the youngest son of Eleanor of Aquitaine, so there's a family resemblance. I mean, he looks like he could be her dad here, but okay, whatever. He had 3 older brothers. They all died, and that's how he ends up on the throne. And he's famously one of our worst kings, which is really saying something. He decides that the major thing about being king is that you are going to want to bring in as much tax revenue as you possibly can. So everybody absolutely hates him, and that's where Magna Carta comes in. Magna Carta is a particular document which stated these are what the rights of rich people are. And I say rich people because I want to be clear, this is not about regular people. It makes a reference in it to freedmen, but 75% of the English population are enserfed and they are not free. You couldn't like move down the road if you wanted to. It has nothing to do with the concept of human rights because there is no concept of human rights at the time.
I'm 37, I'm not old.
Well, I can't just call you man.
You could say Dennis.
I didn't know you were called Dennis.
Well, you didn't bother to find out, did you?
I did say sorry about the old woman, but from behind you looked...
What I object to is you automatically treat me like an inferior.
Well, I am king.
Oh, king, eh? Very nice. And how'd you get that, eh? By exploiting the workers. By hanging on to outdated imperialist dogma which perpetuates the economic and social differences in our society.
My rating for this is again a 5. The reason why I was able to identify this as possibly being the signing of Magna Carta, though, is because Magna Carta as like a big important thing was sort of the invention of Americans, and very specifically the American founding fathers. I know what it's supposed to be because I know what Americans think like, because I've been cursed. When they are revolting against English, they look back in time to try to find historical antecedents where the rights of man are codified into law. It's kind of like based on images of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, so that's why it reads well. But I can't be that mad about it because Magna Carta is boring anyway, so don't care. Here we go, once more into the breach. Okay, I know what this is, but it's stupid. All right, this is supposed to be the murder of Thomas Becket.
Bang on.
Okay, but having said that, multiple guys look like they're being killed. Thomas Becket is the most important English medieval saint, and he was the Archbishop of Canterbury. And he gets killed by several knights, 3 to be exact, on the orders of Eleanor of Aquitaine's husband, King Henry. Thomas Becket becomes the Archbishop of Canterbury specifically because Henry wants him to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. This is super, super common. If you're the king, a lot of the time you can suggest who you want the bishop to be. Doesn't always work. There's a whole thing called the investiture contest. Like, we can't get into it right now. But in this case, Henry wins. Now, he wanted Thomas to be Archbishop of Canterbury because that's the most important position in the church in all of England. So he thought that it would mean in contests between himself and the church, he'd always have someone who was advocating for him. The minute Thomas was made Archbishop, he essentially does a heel turn and he's like, no, I love the church actually. Thomas Becket fundamentally understood that he might get murdered, and he was kind of down for it. Because if you're super religious, being a martyr is kind of what it's all about. He's saying it almost right away. It becomes a massive source of revenue for the church in England, and people come on pilgrimage to Canterbury all the time. That's why you have stuff like the Canterbury Tales a couple hundred years later, because everybody's going on pilgrimage and you have this big holiday that you can write about. What's interesting here is that Thomas Becket, who is obviously the Archbishop of Canterbury, appears to be a knight. If I was going to do a shorthand for a bishop, I would put him in his tiara, which is what the little bishop hat is called. Fun fact. And they're all wearing red. Like, are other colors not available? The thing that's really annoying about this, like, first of all, it looks like you're outside. It kind of like looks like he's in the courtyard of something. And very, very famously, Thomas gets killed inside the actual Canterbury Cathedral. There's a big shrine there now. You could go look at it today. Canterbury Cathedral exists. Like, come on, AI, like at least do a bad job of this by showing the modern cathedral. And I could say, actually, the cathedral would have been painted, you know, and like I could be nerdy about that. But you're just showing like some kind of nebulous courtyard thing. You have to be a nerdy medieval historian who does nothing other than this all day long in order to guess what this might be. The guy at the front who's lying down also looks suspiciously like Sean Connery, specifically in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This sucks pretty badly. Does it suck worse than the Prague picture? No, because it hasn't insulted my grandmother. So it is going to be a 2. All right, going in. Well, I can't even really see what this is because it looks like it's some kind of city that it's almost totally black. This is supposed to be something about the Black Death, isn't it?
Exactly, so it's Black Death and it's depicting a very famous city in the UK.
Oh no, this is London.
Yeah, it's London during the Black Death.
I feel like the AI thinks that when we say Black Death, we mean like literal cover of darkness. Like, you can't even see anything in here, right? It's just all black. You've got like a light in one window. The Black Death is what we call the big outbreak of bubonic plague in the 14th century. And it came across to Europe from the Silk Roads. We think now it probably originated in what is now Kyrgyzstan. At the time, they just called it the pestilence. It kills 25% of the entire population of planet Earth. That's even more people than you think when you consider that the plague didn't actually exist in the Americas or Australia. So that's just in Afro-Eurasia. It kills 25% of everybody. Nobody knew what germs were until the 19th century. And until you have antibiotics, there's absolutely no way to treat the Black Death, and so that's why everybody died. It takes a few centuries for the population to bounce back, which is really saying something in a big city like London where there are lots of trade opportunities. I could just start with the chimneys, of which there are many, which are not really a thing in the medieval period. Chimneys got invented in the medieval period, but the first chimney in England is in a castle in the 12th century, but most people have central hearths. All of these like abandoned carts that are just in the middle of the road, 2 wheels both on the back and on the side. Which way is it going? People might not know what germs are, but they have a concept of what we call contagion, that sickness can be spread from one person to another. So a lot of people do try to abandon cities to get away from them. This has the effect of spreading plague for the most part. But quite famously in London, people are still really around. That's why we have plague pits. Like, you can't have all the bodies from all the people who died if the streets are completely empty.
Here's one.
9pence.
I'm not dead.
What? Nothing. Here's your 9pence.
I'm not dead.
Here. He says he's not dead.
Yes, he is. I'm not.
He isn't.
Well, he will be soon. He's very ill. I'm getting better.
No, you're not. You'll be stone dead in a moment. Oh, I can't take him like that. It's against regulation.
What am I gonna do with this? I mean, this sucks a lot. We got like random phantom half cab, half wagons. We got chimneys all over the place. We have a misunderstanding of black as, I don't know, soot or something. Like, it looks like they were trying to do something about Jack the Ripper and, like, ended up calling it medieval.
The question is it worse than Prague?
Well, it can't be worse than Prague. So, 2. Which is very bad. Like, see me after class, AI. All right. What do we got here? This is a big church scene. Oh wow, this one figured out that priests exist. It's doing better than it was when it was talking about the assassination of Thomas Becket. Big fancy. I've got a weird guess on this one, based on the floor.
Oh, well, what do you think it is?
Is this supposed to be Westminster Abbey?
It is supposed to be Westminster Abbey, but do you know what it is depicting?
Is this supposed to be a coronation?
It's the coronation of William the Conqueror.
That's pretty funny. Okay, all right. William the Conqueror famously becomes King of England because he conquered it. But when he did so in 1066, he was not hugely popular. The English weren't particularly happy, and they fought back against it. There were actually fires and riots outside. Everybody ended up having to rush out of the building because they thought that they were actually under attack. And so it wasn't like a big, peaceful, beautiful situation like we see here. I am noting that nobody has a face, so that's fine. They all have white hair. They're not bald. And what I would expect to see from clerics is that they would have a tonsure, which is that shaved bit at the top of your head to kind of mark you out as a member of the clergy. What tipped me off is this tiling here looks like a computer trying to do the Cosmati pavement. The Cosmati pavement is this really, really cool inlaid marble which shows the universe. Again, we're just having this stone building, which it kind of is now. But if you go into Westminster Abbey and you know what to look for, you will see where all the bits of old paint were. In the medieval period, it was red, it was blue, it had pictures of saints everywhere. It certainly wasn't just gray like this. It's very interesting because in the scene where we see Thomas Becket killed, everybody's a knight and there are no priests. But in this one, where we're doing a coronation, everybody's a priest and there are no knights. Westminster Abbey was specifically constructed by Edward the Confessor. According to William the Conqueror, Edward the Confessor had made him his heir. Girl, I don't know. There were 3 heirs. They fought a lot about it. William the Conqueror wants to be crowned there because it's saying, I am in a direct line from Edward the Confessor, and now that's where all kings and queens of England are crowned. One of the things that's also kind of funny about this is you can see here we've got some real Gothic artwork or tracery on the vaults there. That can't be 1066 because they're still building in Romanesque vernacular at the time, which means rounded arches. The Gothic belongs to the high and late medieval period when we figure out how to make pointy arches. And then they get really, really into that, making them pointier and pointier and pointier. A coronation process is also a really difficult one because now people will always say, oh, well, this is the traditional coronation procedure. But that changes a lot over the centuries upon centuries. So we don't know exactly what William's coronation would have looked like. We do know that involves anointing, usually on your arms and your heart and your head. He probably would have received a crown, and he certainly would have been maybe he's kneeling? But also he would usually be kneeling kind of in front of someone who's doing the anointing. He just appears to be kneeling out of nowhere in front of, I don't know, several jack-in-the-boxes around him. I don't know what's going on here. My rating for this, I kind of recognized the Cosmati pavement, but also it fundamentally sucks. So it's a 3, which is, I think, incredibly benevolent of me, unlike William the Conqueror. Am I right? All right, okay, last one. Okay, this is a battle. Crecy?
No, but it is kind of...
Is it 100 Years' War-y?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this Agincourt?
It is Agincourt.
Get in. Okay, all right. Battle of Agincourt. This is one of the battles of the 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War is when the English decided that they should get to be King of France because it's not fair, and Mom said that they could have a turn. So they go down there to make a claim to the throne after the Capetian line dies out. The French didn't really think that that was a great idea, and so they fought about it off and on again for, spoiler, 100 years, but it was actually longer than 100 years because they took a little break for the Black Death because there weren't enough people to fight at the time. Agincourt is also kind of famous because it's one of the battles that Henry V was involved in, and that is really unusual because it's a stupid idea to let your king be out in the middle of a battlefield because he can get killed. This is what happens to King Harold at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. This is how Richard the Lionheart dies. He gets a crossbow fired by a 14-year-old and it takes him down. In fact, Henry V had been almost killed already at the Battle of Shrewsbury by this point, where he got an arrow to the face. So you think he would learn something, but like one of the immutable characteristics of a lot of the monarchy is they're unable to learn. You can kind of tell because of all the mud, and it was like one of the deciding factors in the Battle of Agincourt. There was like a big slippy field. The people's horses couldn't get a purchase in the mud and they slipped and fell a lot. I like how they've just got like this trebuchet in the background, but you don't use trebuchet for pitched battle. Trebuchet are used specifically to siege castles. They're for knocking down walls. If you're going to hurl a huge object into a battle, you're also going to kill your men. War in the Middle Ages is not the same as war now. You're not actually just trying to kill people. If you're a rich person, war is more like rich guy tag. And the thing that you want to do is you want to get down into battle and you want to kidnap as many other rich guys as you possibly can, and you ransom them. Bonus points if you kidnap a king. Which happens kind of often. I think one of the things that's weirdest about this particular image is that nobody seems to be wearing armor. If you're at Magna Carta being signed, you're wearing armor. On the battlefield at Agincourt, you apparently are in a pith helmet and some form of Napoleonic dress. Like, I mean, my man here's got pantaloons. Everybody is a pikeman, and to be fair, there's a lot of pikemen in medieval armies because pikemen are essentially like the peasants who are unwillingly recruited and forced to fight. Because peasants don't want to be there and they really do not care who the king is. This is blue, it's not actually mail. For pikemen, I would expect to see boiled leather, at the very least, for example. Again, the AI seems to think that the only color in the medieval period was red. I'm not seeing any kinds of coats of arm. It's just like, you know, oh, this guy's got 3 arms, so that's cool. It's only legible because of the mud. There is a gun in this. There's no horses, there's no longbows, there's no armor. I think it's a 1. You can't throw a gun into military scenes in the Middle Ages. Some of these suck enough. You're gonna be like, okay, never mind, well, I can't use this. But then like, you might see the image of Eleanor of Aquitaine and go, well, there's a nice medieval lady looking medieval and nice. And you might think that you can use that. Like, it's just got enough things that people would expect to see that they might take it seriously. And that's why this stuff is a worry. If you show London during the Black Death and there is smoke pouring out of a bunch of chimneys, you're only going to know that's wrong if you are a specialist. Who's the best and who's the worst? The best you can be is mediocre at this point. And so I think the best is Eleanor of Aquitaine because it's a legible, fancy lady. That's the best, and it's still wrong. You know, like the hair's wrong, the dress is wrong, the beauty standards are wrong, the eyeshadow's wrong, it's wrong. She was a lot more of a cat-eye girl. You didn't offend me mortally or personally. Joan of Arc's the worst. Complete detachment from any sense of reality. We got women floating, we've got random towers on the edge of the forest, we've got like the Silent Sisters overseeing this. We don't even understand how burning at the stake works. Like, there's a way of doing this without showing violence. AI. Don't ever show this to me again. You owe me an apology if you enjoyed seeing me tortured. And in the future would like to see more of that. I guess smash subscribe, because the history is making my life worse every day of the week. Okay, that's not true. But still, that's the best way to keep up with everything that we've got going on over here.